Hello, my loves, and welcome back to another episode of It's Bailey. Today we're talking about the number one thing that once I kind of figured out that this was a thing, self-sabotaging my fat loss journey, I was able to easily drop the weight that I wanted to lose. Like all fat loss videos on the internet, I am going to give this a trigger warning. If you're someone who's going to get triggered by talking about fat loss, being in a deficit, food noise, you're in a moment of disordered eating, my heart goes out to you, and it honestly won't be helpful for you to watch this video. So I would kindly skip this one. So the number one thing that helped me to be able to lose weight was figuring out not how to silence, but being okay with food noise. For most people, and for myself, I really pinpointed that the thing that was sabotaging a lot of fat loss efforts was my relationship to food noise. And I'm sure if you're watching this and you've been on a fat loss journey, you're gonna start one, or you're currently in one, you will know what I'm talking about. Food noise are the thoughts that come into your head when you're in a deficit. It's hunger. It might be thinking about food, thinking about when you're going to eat next. And it's especially present in a fat loss phase because you are in a caloric deficit. Unless you're in a reverse diet, you're going to be eating less than your body is used to. So then what happens is our hormone ghrelin signals our body to be hungry, our stomach to rumble, our mind to start having these thoughts of, ooh, we're hungry, we need to eat. It's actually quite a survival instinct because back in the caveman days, they never knew when they were going to have their next meal. So when they started feeling hungry, the first thing on their mind was food. I have to find food and I have to find it now. But if you're watching this video on a laptop or on an iPhone, I'm assuming that you probably can be able to pay for your next meal and find your next meal, and you're not in a era of survival where you know that today you will have another meal or two, and that is such a blessing that you're able to not be in that survival instinct. So rewinding back to in my, past fat loss attempts, we're not going to go super deep because that could be a long story of all the things that I did wrong. But especially before I started my business and I had a really good relationship with food and fat loss and balancing my hormones, the thing that always sabotaged me every single time was food noise, because this food noise would come in and there'd be one of two approaches. The first approach would be like, okay, I'm going to sit with this food noise, but I'm going to sit with it so long that I get crazy hangry. Like I'm a bitch hangry. I get super mean, super irritable, extremely obsessed with food in my head, which causes me to have a bad relationship with food. And then I'm going to end up binging and overeating. Obviously, we don't want that. So either that would happen or the second option would happen where I'd have the thoughts of food noise and I'd be so scared of that first option happening that I would just eat immediately. And I'd kind of be like, F this diet, F this deficit. Like I don't want to lose weight if I'm going to feel the feelings of hunger, which I get it is so valid. And it's really hard because in the online space, there are two very distinct ends of the fat loss industry. There is the toxic diet culture that is very cutthroat, all about discipline, all about looking, super skinny, even if it's not healthy, teaching you very restrictive ways to lose weight, more disordered eating. And then there's the other side, which is more food freedom, which, don't get me wrong, food freedom, if you're doing what food freedom actually is a great, healthy approach. Food freedom is what saved me from years of binge eating. I don't dislike normal food freedom. What I dislike is toxic food freedom. So on the other end of the spectrum, it's where people can shame people for wanting to lose weight. People aren't giving proper fat loss advice. They're not talking about it because they're telling you you're perfect the way that you are, which yes, you are, but also if it's healthy for you to lose weight, also, I don't think it's wrong aesthetically if you want to lose weight, if it's healthy for you, that's fine. Where I feel like they can guilt you and not even teach you the correct ways to be able to healthily lose weight. And what I went so far down, so I started off very much in diet culture, got me into binge eating. Food freedom did save me from that, so thankful. But then I went so far in food freedom, it wasn't even really food freedom anymore. It's what I call toxic food freedom, where I was just eating whatever, whenever, that did cause me to lose some weight. That made my PCOS and other hormone issues so much worse. I was drinking more. I was eating a lot more processed foods. I wasn't really caring as much about what I put into my body, which I know is not the principles of food freedom. Like I said, this is toxic food freedom. And I felt like if I wanted to lose weight, it was shameful. And they very much preach, if you're hungry, you need to eat, which I get that's totally valid in like ED recovery. But I was in such a great place with my relationship with food that I was like, there needs to be someone in the middle who teaches people how to lose weight the right way, the healthy way, where people aren't in toxic food freedom, where they're guilted for wanting to lose weight. They're not even taught how to. Or there's the other toxic diet culture side that teaches you to heavily restrict. If you want to lose weight, you can't eat any of your favorite foods. You have to be in this super big deficit. If you don't have the self-discipline, then you're a lazy piece of shit. And I was like, when I started my business, I was like, I'm going to be the middle woman who teaches women how to do this the correct way. So that is part of what I'm helping you do here today, is navigating that food noise in the middle. Make sure I'm still in the frame. I'm also looking at my notes off to this side, but that is a thing that I pinpointed for me and for most people. They get to food noise and they do either of those two extremes where they take it way too far. They get super hangry. They end up going down this route of binge restrict, binge restrict, binge restrict. They view foods, they demonize foods of really good and really bad foods, and that leads them more to a toxic diet culture. Or on the flip side, they're more on like the toxic food freedom side, where if they view being hungry and being in a deficit as a devil and wrong, and it's not. It's all your approach on it. So how do we approach food noise the correct way? So obviously, this is the simplest of terms. Food noise is normal when it's not taken too far. When you are eating less, when you are in a deficit trying to lose weight, what is going to happen? You're not eating as much as usual. So your ghrelin's going to kick in. Your stomach's like, ooh, I'm not being as full as I usually am. You're not eating the calories that you usually would eat. Maybe you're eating less than your total daily energy expenditure. You are going to feel hungry. You're going to feel that sensation of hunger. Because you're hungry, you're going to have those thoughts come into my head of, ooh, I'm hungry, I need to go to the pantry. Ooh, I'm hungry, I need to eat more. You might think about your next meal. And a little bit of that hunger is normal. And you need to learn, honestly, like a big thing for me was learning to feel comfortable with that. A little bit of this food noise, a little bit of this hunger is normal. Because I'm currently in a deficit, obviously I just lost 6 pounds last month and a half. And a huge part of that was I've been the most comfortable with food noise I've ever been. And when I would get hungry, and I hate that I even have to give trigger warnings, but like, obviously I'm still eating 3 meals a day. My deficit isn't huge. I don't like giving exact numbers when it comes to like how much I weigh, because I don't want anyone watching this to see that and think, oh, I need to lose weight, or, oh, like she's my weight and trying to lose weight. So that's why I'm not giving numbers. I don't think that's helpful in the sense of like how much I weighed before and how much I weigh now. And same thing with my calories. I don't love saying the calories I'm eating. And then for someone else to think like, oh, I eat more than that, like I need to be in a deficit. So I'll give you a range. My deficit is under 2,000, but not by a lot. So I'm still eating plenty of food. But anyways, I'm eating less than I used to. So when those feelings of hunger set in, I breathe into it. I'm like, this is normal. I'm in a deficit. And I remind myself, I'm not a cave woman who is needing to eat right now because she's not going to get her next meal. I am financially blessed enough. I have food in my fridge. I can eat a snack whenever. I can go to the fridge whenever. And I took almost the next meal and the food off the pedestal because I can't go into my fridge and get food right now. And just reminding my brain, I'm not a cave woman. I'm gonna have my next meal. I'm only in a deficit. It is safe for me to sit with this hunger. It is safe. Regulating my nervous system around it, normalizing it in my head was the number one thing that helped me so much. Now, obviously, you don't want that hunger to get so strong to where it's like, if there's a zone, so there's like full, there's like getting a little bit, and then maybe you're getting a little bit hungry. There's that like middle zone where like you have a little bit of hunger. That's the zone that we're normalizing. And then above that little bit of hunger, there's like hangry. You don't want to get to the hangry zone. If you're getting to the hangry zone, eat a freaking snack. Have something that has protein, fiber, have a piece of fruit, because in the hangry zone, that is where you might end up overeating, getting in a pattern of binging, hurting a relationship with food. So we don't want to get in the zone of hunger. We want to reside in like the normal little bit of hunger. And obviously it's really hard for me to explain how that's going to feel for you like through my words in this video, but hopefully you know what I mean. So the first way you're going to not silence the food noise, but be okay with the food noise is by being okay with the food noise, which is all in mindset and mental effort. Next, there are a few ways we can subtly silence the food noise. And no, it's not going to be in Ozempic. We're going to do this through healing more. I don't want to say like the root cause of it, but like not through slapping a medication on it. First is going to be by eating foods higher in protein. So, I mean, hopefully if you're watching this, you know what foods are higher in protein, but specifically like complete proteins. If you're vegan, there are so many plant-based proteins. Make sure you're getting in a complete protein if you're vegan or vegetarian. Rice and beans is a good example. Just look up complete protein pairings if you're not eating animal-based products. But obviously, like meat is like my favorite source of complete protein. Getting, you know, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese. I love a beef jerky. I make egg bites that I make egg bites that I will make as snacks even. So like when I got back from the gym, I was hungry. I don't love protein powders. They just don't make me feel the best, make me break out. But I have I cannot talk today. I have egg bites on deck. I can pop into the air fryer and get in protein. So protein, foods filled with fiber. So many times people focus on protein, they forget about fiber. We need fiber to lose weight, to stay full and satiated, to have healthy bowel movements, for our hormones to function properly. So having a piece of fruit, having some veggies, look up like top 10 foods with fiber. I'll put some on the screen somewhere, but getting in foods with fiber, as well as we don't want to neglect the healthy fats and complex proteins. We want all of those, but the foods that will help you keep you full, especially, are going to be protein and fiber. And then eating high volume foods. One of my favorite high volume foods is potatoes. Potatoes, I feel like, has been demonized for so long as being like a bad food for fat loss, but potatoes are very low in calorie for the amount that you can eat. They're extremely satiating. I've made potatoes literally two or three times a week. I will make French fries in the air fryer. I'll put like a little bit of avocado oil or olive oil, a bunch of seasonings, and I'll be able to eat like a huge portion of potatoes for under 200 calories with a complete protein source and a veggie, and it's so satiating and it keeps me full. So we have high volume foods, we have protein, we have fiber, and I want you to make sure too, your deficit isn't too big. If you are in a huge deficit, let's say your maintenance calories was 2,000 calories and you go into a deficit immediately of 1,500, you are going to feel so much more food noise because your deficit is so big. If you were to maybe start off at 1,900 calories, then 1,850, then 1,800. That food noise will be much less because you're incrementally bringing down your deficit versus just right away going from like 2,000 calories a day to 1,500 is going to be like a huge shock to your system. So having like a slow grow with that deficit will be also really beneficial of staying in that like healthy food noise zone. Now, a supplement that can help with food noise, people will call it nature's Ozempic. I do think I use it myself for, you know, helping manage my PCOS, my acne. It is called berberine. I'm not a doctor. This is not a prescription. This is only a suggestion. So make sure to ask your doctor. But berberine does somewhat act like Ozempic in the sense, or GLP-1, in the sense that it helps balance your blood sugar. It can help with things like insulin resistance, which can help with bringing down the food noise. Berberine isn't something that should be used long-term just because it can, if it's used prolonged, can have negative side effects for your stomach because it is antimicrobial, but which also can have its own benefits depending what your gut health looks like. But berberine is a supplement that I do commonly recommend to specific clients who maybe have PCOS, struggle with insulin resistance, blood sugar issues, or have maybe a little bit more food noise than like the normal Joe Schmo. The last thing that will help you be okay in the comfortable zone of food noise, that will bring it down a little bit, is making sure even though you are sitting with hunger, you still have a really great relationship with food and you don't put anything off limits. one thing that's been able to help me lose 6 pounds in a month and a half, and like obviously in the past be able to successfully lose weight, that has been able to help my clients lose over 40 pounds and keep the weight off, is still including foods throughout their week that are like their comfort foods, or foods that they really enjoy having. For me, it's ice cream and french fries. I will always be an ice cream and french fry kind of girly. I have ice cream once or twice a week, and I have french fries like 1 to 3 times a week. It's just tweaking it in a way that supports my fat loss goals. So maybe instead of going to McDonald's and getting french fries, which I still will do in my fat loss journey, but more commonly I'll make fries at home with less oil, some sea salt, some spices, and I'm able to, if I want to weigh them out or measure them out, I can, but I still include french fries. Same thing with ice cream. My boyfriend and I will usually get ice cream once a week, or this week we got 2 pints from Whole Foods, and then 2 different nights I had a serving of ice cream. I kept it in my deficit, and their food, like when you tell yourself, like if I told myself no ice cream, no french fries, I wouldn't want to lose weight. I love ice cream, I love french fries. The way you lose the weight is the way that you're going to maintain your fat loss. So if I lost weight by cutting out all the foods I loved, the way I maintain that fat loss is by continuing to cut out the foods I loved. So it's so important to me, and when I help my clients in one-on-one coaching in the Strong and Sexy Sisterhood, to be able to help them healthily lose weight without cutting out their favorite foods, without having that all or nothing mentality. I'm in a Facebook group for the city that I live in, and it made my heart so sad because I saw a girl, she had all good intentions, obviously, being like, hey guys, I'm on a fat loss journey. Because of that, my boyfriend and I aren't going out to eat anymore. We're only making our meals at home. I'm not keeping any chocolate, any this, that, or whatever in the fridge. And I applaud her for her willpower, but it made me sad because I'm like, you sweet girl, like you don't need to give up your date nights with your boyfriend. You don't need to give up. Like if you love having some dark chocolate, like your square of dark chocolate you have after dinner, that's most likely not the thing sabotaging your fat loss journey. And I personally believe it's going to be so hard for you to be able to stay in your fat loss journey and maintain the fat loss if you're doing it by cutting out foods, having kind of like out of sight, out of mind mentality. Because take me as proof, my clients with PCOS that have lost over 40 pounds for proof, they've been able to lose the weight while still including things like cookies, Oreos, Doritos, McDonald's, Chick-fil-A. It all comes down to keeping it within their deficit, but also those days they eat those foods, having very supportive meals with protein, fiber, fruits, and veggies on the days that they maybe have like a food that fuels their soul. So that is my not so secret of what has been able to help me lose the weight, how I've been able to help my clients lose the weight, is not necessarily silencing, but being okay with the food noise and making those tweaks within their nutrition and their mindset to maybe like dampen the food noise and lessen it a little bit. Something else I think I forgot to mention was that this food noise will go down. When your BMR, when your basal metabolic rate adjusts, when your stomach, it will shrink. If you're used to eating a ton of food, like your stomach will shrink. So when your stomach shrinks and your BMR adjusts, the food noise will go down. And eventually your like goal weight will be your normal weight that you'll be maintaining, and you won't have food noise any longer, especially if you implement the tips in this video. If you enjoyed this podcast episode, if you're on YouTube, make sure to subscribe. I'm really trying to grow my YouTube. If you're watching this on Spotify, make sure to follow and rate the podcast a 5 out of 5 if you loved it. And if you're a woman on a hormone balancing journey, a PCOS managing journey, a healthy fat loss journey, I will put my link below that includes all 3 of my coaching services if you are wanting my help. Thank you, ladies, so much for watching, and I will see you next Monday at 7 a.m.